Hello, everybody, and welcome to the June edition of the Flatcar Developer Sync. In the Developer Sync, we take a issue-centric approach, and we're talking about PRs and tracked issues in the on the issue tracker, and basically all of these developer-related items. Let me share. Before I share the agenda, let's do like a super brief round of introductions. Just say who you are, say hi, and after you're done, please pick the next person to introduce themselves. It is a fun game to play. Starting with Robin.
Hi, my name is Robin. I work at Stackit. And next person, Jan.
Hey, I hope I'm audible. My name is Jan. I work at Microsoft. I am a Flatcar maintainer, and I do a lot of things with Flatcar, mainly CNCF stuff right now, and some infra as well. Matthew, I go next.
Hello. I work in the Flatcar team and helping with the release and other stuff. What about you, Adrian?
Hello, Adrian here. I work at Cloud-Based Solutions. I'm a Flatcar maintainer. Glad to be here. So next, Cyan.
Hello, I'm San. I also am a Flatcar maintainer for Microsoft, and I primarily also look into releases and other things. And yeah, that's about me. Handing over to Dongsu.
Hi, my name is Dongsu. I'm also a Flatcar maintainer at Microsoft. Next, Piotr.
Piotr, if you want, Piotr has answered in the chat. I'll read for him. So Piotr is a Flatcar user. He's deployed Flatcar, and he's just curious to listen in. You came to the right place. Cool. All right. Then let me share the agenda for today. We're just going to briefly go over the agenda. There are a few discussion items in there, so I will then stop sharing my screen so we have room for people to discuss. Here we go. You should be seeing the agenda right now. So we had the brief intro, and let's go through the monthly contributions real quick. So this is a report that we auto-generate for each month. You will find closed reports here, and usually the last one, the most recent one, is open for review. So we had 21% of the contributors in the last month were new contributors. Those are Jeff with fixes for the exascale image, Hans with improvements and fixes for the Kubernetes SysX, and Jason with improvements and fixes for the Rancher RKA2 SysX. It's amazing to see new contributors. It's great to have better vendor support. And as usual, the SysX bakery succeeds in attracting new folks to the project. Good stuff. Okay. I'll do a really brief skim of the advisory report because we have a larger discussion topic coming up, and I want to make room for that to discuss the state of advisories and the way we want to deal with these in the future. So let's share the respective tab. That's the latest report. And then, wait, actually I have a table of contents for that. So we have a number of new advisories, 19 created, 3 closed, and 16 new advisories remain open. And we have a total of close 23 advisories in the last period. We have a total of 42 open advisories right now. Some of them are severe, most of them are minor. I think the most pressing one is containerd, which we'll get to. However, if you need a faster fix for containerd, then we can ship a new update version. A safe measure you can always do is you can consume the containerd sysext from the sysext bakery if you want to do so. Head over to the sysext bakery and you find the installation instructions for the containerd sysext right here. And you can check the versions available for the containerd sysext here. And you'll find that we published the fixed the versions that contain the CVE fixes for all active maintenance branches of containerd very recently. All right. With that being said, let's move over to the active discussions and tasks. Do we have an addition to the agenda? Oh yeah, right. We cover that. That's actually a good point. That's Jan. We can cover that in the regular CNCF graduation process. So Matthew handed in a discussion topic on the state of security issues, releasing patches fast versus ensuring stability and keeping the Flatcar users maintenance overhead low. So gonna head over, give over the mic to Mathieu.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, hey, Hanat. Yesterday we got a question from Robin, or 2 days ago, I don't remember, regarding the containerd series that we wanted to fix into Flatcar, and if we can give an estimate date of the release and stuff like that. And following this, we got a discussion about the actual status of the CVEs into Flatcar and how we handle them. So to give a bit of history, I think Dongsu, Sayan, and me have been actively working on tracking the CVEs in the last years, and it was okay. So we got few CVEs coming every now and then, and we're able to patch them using the weekly updates, and all security issues were fixed in the alpha, beta, and stable promotion pattern. It was fine, and from time to time, we got some critical security issues, let's say, and it was us to judge if it was worth to backport those security fixes into stable. So it happened quite a few times, not every week, but yeah, it happens like 3 or 4 times, 5 times maybe. And since a few months now, we're starting to see a big increase on the number of CVEs report on the various software inside Flatcar. And yeah, things getting a bit more complicated now to handle because it seems that we would need to release like every day if we were just following the new security issues and stuff like that. So this alpha beta stable promotion pattern is really powerful to keep stability, but it's not powerful to bring really quick security issues, security fixes into stable workloads. So yeah, I'm just here to discuss about this and get your feedback on the situation and see how we could improve the situation here from a maintainer point of view, but from a user point of view as well, because that's the most important. And see how we can keep this stability and security trade-off and how we could evolve in the next month, because we know for sure that things are going to be in the same trend in the next month regarding the load of security issues and stuff like that. So yeah, it's an open discussion. Feel free to raise your hand or bring your feedback here to discuss about this. And maybe after that, we can gather all this feedback and put it in a GitHub issue or in a document.
Yeah, so I'll just wanted to add that this was something that had been in my mind for a long time, that we usually we have some CVs which take some time to hit stable, but then if we look from the stability point of view, that's definitely we try to ingest things from Gen 2 upstream and try to stabilize it. But this exact discussion I had with Hilo, I guess 2-3 weeks back in our one-on-one as well, that we are hitting a lot of security and people are asking when things would hit stable. So I don't think I have a solution right now. But one thing that came up was porting packages, but that is again an overhead on us and a major pipeline overhaul. So probably we need to look how that can be done. But yeah, this topic definitely needs a bit more thought, because right now uh, we probably take inspiration, but other OSs operate in a different way. Because they have, for example, CoreOS has RPM packages. They can easily ingest those things individually. So those things need to be looked into. But yeah, I haven't not thought about a solution yet. But thanks for bringing this up.
Robin, maybe you can give us some input from the operations side, and you've been the driving factor behind bakery updates as well. So in fact, the container, the update I mentioned earlier, I was encouraged by you basically providing feedback on ops needs. Do you have any input to the process? Any ideas?
So from our operation side, we are only using the stable version. So we are not even using alpha or beta versions. Also, we don't even provide the long-term support version, to be fair. So we are only looking at one version here, but maybe it would be a good compromise to include patch versions with vulnerability patches into the release faster. And then for minor version, for example, container D minor version, to still have this inside the alpha, beta, and then release version. So a mixture of both worlds. But yeah, for us, at least it's critical to get fast updates for our users, especially if someone could take over the entire server or node.
Yeah, that makes sense. Would it also maybe make sense to better distribute the package upgrade load over time by focusing on security patches first? So basically prioritize ingesting updated e-builds for CVEs that we track, and then push back on the let's say regular weekly update schedule and make it more of a monthly update schedule. Would that help?
This is what we've done basically really in the past. Before the weekly updates, automation and everything, all the packages into Flatcar was updated in a best effort way, and it was mainly security driven. So usually the packages were updated only when the CVEs or security issues was impacting the package. But yeah, all of the rest was really outdated, but as long as it was not a security issue, it was okay. And then we added this weekly updates automation, which is perfect because we are up to date and everything. But all the security issues that impact packages inside these weekly updates are really mixed with all of this, and it creates big peers to review. So it slowed down a bit the process here. So yeah, I think that would make sense to have weekly updates driven by security, like we've done in the past, but keeping both world here.
I also want to add another aspect because Chewy is not here, so yeah, as Gen 2 maintainers. So when the Gen 2 updates were moderate as fast as the upstream packages, we also could Flatcar could also get security updates faster. However, when that did not happen like these days, so some packages are not maintained for a long time, and from the Gentoo side, then it is really hard for Flatcar to be updated. So that's the one another critical issue for all of us. Yes, Simon.
Yeah, so I wanted to add to Matthew's thought. Would it be possible that we, if there is a package that is getting blocked in, say, weekly updates continues, but then if a package is there, we create a separate PR just for all the security packages, cherry pick the changes from there and create a PR just for the security weekly updates, something on those lines, and then get that thing merged and the rest can follow. Yeah, something like that. The security team can maybe just look into the weekly updates, cherry pick the commits from those branches, and create a different security PR. Yeah, and maybe draw from the weekly update one.
That's a good idea, but we don't solve the promotion pattern issue because yes, we have quickly solved the issue, but it's in alpha and it will be stable in like 5 months.
Right.
But that's a good idea, I think, because that would unblock a lot of stuff here. So yeah, maybe there is two things we can act on. Is first how we manage the security fixing review and stuff like that, and how we manage to promote these changes into stable. So I think there is two different stuff we can do in parallel here.
Was my name mentioned? Sorry, I'm late.
Yeah, it's all the Gentoo's fault. So
actually, it's funny. The reason I got sidetracked and forgot about this meeting is because I'm bumping run C and container D right now. So there we are. I was thinking about this though, like how cheap can we make, promoting these changes across the channels? I mean, I feel like it's kind of cheap already, but you just have to work out which changes you need to put in and write the change logs. It's all the tedious bits, right?
yes, Ian.
Yes, so I was coming to announce the same thing. So if you can identify like places where we get blocked on releases and it takes time, so that we make the releases more monotonous. If you can identify these issues, one is like so I was thinking, like, rather than having a hacked MD doc for change log, you could just like all the change logs can just go into like a file in that particular bin cache directory or something like that, and then we push it whatever the file is created. We keep updating it, but so that is one thing. We try to make that process better, but just identifying, like, signing takes a lot of time. Just identifying those changes so we can iterate on releases a bit more faster, if that can be done. And yeah, Robin.
One additional point I know. So the container D CVE got released on a Friday. I mean, that's always bad for someone. What do you want to do? Patch it on the weekend on your free time. But since Container D is a CNCF project and other providers, for example, AWS, they were patched before the CVE got released. So maybe we can talk to the CNCF and they can talk to other projects to inform us beforehand. I mean, then we would have at least known there is something and it's getting released at this time or date. So that would be maybe a great point on the wish list for dependencies like Container D or Kubernetes.
Jan.
So I got two questions more or less, and for the first one, I don't know much about our security procedures, so this might be a dumb question, but do we have any kind of a tiering level mechanism for security issues?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we in our GitHub issues we do tier like which is high priority and low priority, and then we tier in those levels based on the score. There's also sometimes one thing we factorize, which is like how impactful the news will be. We don't like that, but I think we do sometimes take that into consideration. Yeah.
Okay. And the second question would be, would it be possible, at least based on my releasing experience, to basically have always the CA rounds needed for a release on hand, right? Because we do launch them manually at a certain point, right? And if we were to basically be like firing these up every day without even like a necessity to actually publish some of these, right? Wouldn't that speed up things? Does that make sense? Even I don't know.
Do you? I did not get the. You got chopped off for me in between. So you are
Okay.
meaning to start the builds automatically?
Yeah, like every day basically.
Right, so nightly releases, which we have been
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. So there is a talk about the nightly releases thing. So we just uh, do the releases. The builds keep on happening. We just retag it that it's a release. But still, so that would definitely help a lot. But again, like one issue still remains is like um, how we make a package reach from one alpha to stable in the least possible time. Say like right now it's 2-3 months, and if we can target it to like a month, so how we do that?
Yeah, I think because no one's gonna like run nightly releases on their production rig, right? So it's not really gonna help them. I mean, I think it might make us more prepared to do a release, but you know, at any given moment because we know it built before. But yeah, I think they're still going to be calling out for fixes all the same. So
But
Yeah, that was basically my idea. You know, if because like if oh sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Like my question would basically like if we were to measure time, right? That it takes us for every release, right? And then also like every bump essentially of that version and that patch going through all of the layers. Like if we were to categorize all of this time, right? You know, let's say like a release takes 2 weeks, right? And let's say 3 days is from when you decide I want to run a build, and okay, that build finishes and I can continue, right? If we were to sum up this time, right, would the the total sum of that time not make a like sizable impact on the whole procedure, right? Like even if it's not directly helping you bump these versions, right? If an average time of releasing gets cut from like 2 weeks to week and a half, right? That is still like 25% improvement. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Matthew.
Yeah, something we discussed yesterday as well was the number of channels we maintain. And to be honest, when I check the numbers on the public update server and I see how many folks are using alpha or beta, I'm sometimes wondering if it makes sense to maintain those channels. Beta makes sense, but alpha, it's like we have maybe 100 people using alpha release, so it's really nothing, and it's not representative. And every time we got some feedback on not stable channels, it was always on alpha, so we never get a report from alpha almost. So yeah, maybe that would ease a bit the release process to at least remove one channel or do something else with this channel. For example, promoting each alpha to be the nightlies actually. So yeah, I'm just dreaming here, but I think that should be not that complicated to do that in to do that, to just remove channel alpha channel and promote it to nightlies. And at least it should shortcut a bit the time between a package landing into beta then landing into stable. And if we check for Fedora CoreOS, for example, they have only 2 channels actually. They have the testing and the stable, and there is the next one, but yeah, they mainly relies on testing and stable. That's it. So yeah, that's another discussion, but I think that's important to have it as well.
So 2 things basically, and I agree. We have mused about bringing the nightly build automation to a point where it actually builds full releases every night, not just alpha. So basically, not just a new major alpha every night, which we're de facto already doing with main. We just don't call it alpha, and we don't publish the bits on GHCR, like the SDK container, and we don't sign with the official key. But so the actual build process is there. Maybe given the situation at hand, we want to prioritize making it a real alpha. And when we're there, we know about all of the pain points in productizing that, and then we can investigate the same things with beta and stable, which are patch level releases. So the version handling would be different. In fact, the version handling of real nightly alpha releases would be easier than the patch level handling of beta and stable, just from the way the versioning works. But we would know from the alpha work where the major pain points are, and we would know that we would only need to iterate on the versioning bits when we look at beta and stable. So maybe folks interested in infrastructure or CI automation could even go ahead and take a look and do that first step in having actual alpha releases every night. I would love that, because I recommend alpha to people who want to ramp up a Flatcar development, right? Because it's proven to not explode in your face. The SDK container is proven to be there, like it checks all the boxes, and it makes ramping up a Flatcar development a little bit easier, at least. So that would be a nice first step, and then we could investigate doing the same for beta and stable. Now, with ingesting the patches and distributing them to beta and stable, at least with some cherry picking, that's an interesting field as well. As has been mentioned in this call, the weekly upgrades, the weekly package updates grew somewhat unwieldy in that we're doing big chunks of everything, and we're not splitting things up between security upgrades, patch level upgrades, and major package upgrades. So maybe it's worth revisiting that and cutting down on the amount of packages that we upgrade, focus on securities and CVEs first, and then having done that, we would have a better understanding in what it would take to actually cherry pick the security fixes to beta and stable releases. So there are 2, maybe 3 almost unrelated fields where we could pool folks and we could more or less work in parallel independently on all of these, which would be prioritizing CVE fixes with package updates, and then further down the road, investigating, cherry picking those patch level upgrades into beta and stable faster, because there's a reason for accelerating those, because they fix security issues. And then the other entirely different field is making the release build process more automated and having nightly alpha releases. So that's what I'm summarizing from the discussion. I think Cyan first, and then Jui.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention one thing is Fedora actually has 3 channels. They have the next as well, which is for the future. So I think, but I think they usually get the, I'm not sure. So they usually end up getting the RPMs. So there is this whole, like, they have the package maintenance team, so they deliver the RPMs, and the core OS folks have to just pick and drop the things. For us, it's also those that additional, because we build everything from scratch in the SDK, so that's an additional workload on our side. Federal Chorus does not have that problem a bit, but I like the idea for, because we check out main, or we check out alpha from main, so bringing that automation would definitely makes a bit of sense. So yeah, yeah, Chewy.
Yep. Before Flatcar, I used to advocate for just taking all updates that you can as soon as you can, instead of micromanaging, security fixes, because it's just less work that way, and you get the security fixes for free. But I think to a certain extent, we do that anyway. So it makes me stop and think, well, where is the problem here? If everyone ran alpha, would they be complaining? Or is it the time? If we took all the updates, like if Gentoo updated everything straight away and we updated everything straight away, and the only delay was the natural promotion of our releases, through beta and stable and so on, would that make users happy? Maybe not. I don't know. Slightly lost what my point was, but yeah, yeah, I'm just slightly hesitant to micromanage these, at least for like alpha releases. Yeah, I guess if you do want to filter them through to the other channels faster, then you need to. But it's just how cheap can you make that? Yeah, Tilo.
I think the only thing holding us back to at least doing that for alpha is the amount of work that at least currently needs to go into the weekly updates to just go through things and merge them. And it's not even reviewing the changes, but I don't want to say that's the easiest part, but that is actually that can be done by like a single human. It's dealing with the unwieldy patch sets and the hundreds of changes. If there was a better way to do it, maybe just keep portage stable fully aligned with whatever state Gentoo is in, and then make sure we still only consume the packages that we want to consume via build profiles, instead of having just a small selection of e-builds. I don't know if that's, you're the Gentoo maintainer, I don't know if that would be the best approach. The last time I just removed portage stable, replaced it by a carbon copy of Gentoo, and renamed that into portage stable, went horribly wrong. So, but I'm not a Gentoo expert, so I don't know.
I know we've talked about this a lot, but although I like the idea originally, I think it's basically the same as what we're doing now, except you don't review it and you just hit the merge button and hope it works.
I think actually, we spend a ton of time in resolving build issues introduced by dependencies that we're not covering in our first approach, and then we're iterating through that. It's basically it's basically something like the add your own package developer guide that we have, but much more complex, and then every week. So if we could introduce like an ease of this boilerplate effort on that part, that would be a huge win. And we could still review all of the changes, all of the semantic changes, right? Because I'm not arguing against doing that. I'm arguing against doing this wild whack-a-mole chase of change dependencies that we do with the weekly updates right now. But that again is a lateral approach to splitting it down in another way and like focusing on security patches first. But maybe there are more than one maybe there's more than one line in which we can break up the weekly updates. I think they need to be broken up, and they need to be broken up soon, because they just take an eternity right now, and it's not nice to do. It's not a nice engineering experience doing them. So that, I think if anything comes out of that meeting, then we should definitely kind of focus our efforts there as well. Sayan.
Yeah, I was just mentally calculating. So, anyways, one thing that happens is the Gentoo folks keep on pushing new e-builds with stabilization and everything. If it's an unstable package, they put the keywords in, and then it stabilizes. For us, it stabilizes. Uh, so for us also, it gets through a second layer of stabilization, and then it goes to stable. So I think that is also something that delays. I mean, if there's a security issue, that definitely gets patched in Gen 2 after a few days, but then it hits our stabilization process, which takes a few months more. So I think that's also is a delay which other OSs just ingest it directly. They just lock in a snapshot of the package version and use it. So yeah, Chewy?
I have wondered if we should just use unstable Gentoo, because I always do. I've never unstable on my machines. This machine is running unstable. And I think for most things, it's probably build issues that you're going to hit rather than runtime issues. And then, by the time it's gone through our channels, it probably will be stable in Gentoo. Yeah, I don't know.
What is the stabilization process for Gen 2? Is it like
Standard is 30 days.
okay?
Also, we're doing this odd thing of like trying to keep ARM64 in line with AMD64, which feels a bit artificial. Like, well, like, are we even really following Gentoo stabilization here if we're just going ahead and doing that? I don't see the need to keep those packages perfectly aligned, but I guess it could make things like change logs a bit tricky because you'd have to do them per architecture. And then once you add RISC-V to the mix, then it really becomes a headache. So yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
So when it comes to Gentoo, is the stabilization process basically them releasing a new version of a package, then seeing, waiting for 30 days if there's any information about there being something wrong, and then just promoting it?
Yeah, it's the maintainer's call. It's not to say that there's been no bug reports at all, but if they're very minor or at least no worse than it was in the last stable one, then yeah, they'll go ahead.
One thing which I have heard previously is the on the stabilization front that they definitely encourage us to report back our testing on how that goes, so that they gets a bit more confidence on uh, marking it as stable sooner.
Yeah, I was about to say they don't just mark it stable after 30 days. What they do is they file a bug with all that CCs all the architect testers for each architecture, and then someone from those teams says, okay, I've tested it on AMD64, remove me. I've tested it on ARM64, remove me. And then eventually when the last one's ticked off, they close the bug. That can take a very long time. For AMD64 and ARM64, it's not too bad. It's more the niche architectures that kind of lag. But it's also worth bearing in mind that what these arch testers are doing is not necessarily, trying it out at runtime and, actually manually using the thing. They might not even know what it is. They'll just do a quick build test. And sometimes this is automated actually, and they'll just say, yeah, works for me, bang, which isn't a great test, but that's what I've been saying. Like, I think stable is more a representation of whether it builds than whether it runs.
Okay. I was asking that because I was basically wondering, how redundant this is versus what we do with alpha, beta, and stable, right? Yeah. That was just it. I don't know who was next. Sorry.
Robin.
I'm not sure if I'm really next, but I can ask my question now. So let's say there's a package, for example, Docker, and it would be completely unsupported by upstream Gentoo. What would be the effort to bring a patch or minor version there if you had to do the maintenance yourself?
I can answer that because we've been doing that for a very long time before we switched to Gentoo Docker. It's very low. So maintaining a Docker ebuild ourselves and ingesting new patch level updates of a Docker series that we already have, like the main version ebuild 4 is super easy. So it's almost no effort, and it's also if Gentoo upstream wouldn't have it, that would be an upstreaming opportunity to bump the Gentoo patch level of that release as well. So Gentoo users of that major minor combination would benefit from the upgrade.
So you're probably just updating the release repository or the tag there and then building it, or what?
Yeah, it's so we would update the ebuild with like the basically the latest full version number of containerd and then rebuild it. And particularly for core components like containerd or Docker or for that matter systemd, I think we can pretty well rely on our test suite to make sure that this particular patch doesn't really introduce like a whole lot of breakage. And also patch level releases tend to introduce very few changes. So basically relying on these two facts would make it really easy for us to integrate that and at the same time continue to guarantee Flatcar stability.
So doing security fixes there should be doable, but it's still an issue if this package would be unmaintained for a longer time.
Yeah, that should be. And I mean, it's always an opportunity to help Gentoo along as well, right? I mean, if it's not updated there, then there's some pressure and a need for from Gentoo users, by Gentoo users to actually get these updates. And yeah.
So that's what I'm doing right now with containerd.
Beautiful.
Because the maintainer there, he's disappeared since February. I'm not sure exactly why, and not any sign of him coming back. So I've done a couple of bumps in that time. Some of the other maintainers have done that as well. No one's officially stepped up to replace him with those packages yet, but I think that's the way it's going, and I'm thinking it should be us because we're so heavily dependent on these.
It's both that we're heavily dependent on that, so it's a win for us to help maintaining those packages, and we almost solely focus on using containerd in the Flatcar use case in general, and our test suite is tailored to it. So it's a big win for Gentoo because they get stable and tested upgrades. So yeah, absolutely, we want to do that.
Yeah, so three things I wanted to talk. One was as a I maintain a package in Fedora as well. So the process there is you push your package. Once it's packaged and everything is done, the updates get pushed to Bodhi, and there they usually stay there for 14 days and then directly move into directly gets moved to stable repo. So you can actually do DNF install, repo testing, and download the package if you want from the testing repo. If it's gone into stable, you don't need to pass the repo flag. But there's one thing that on the portal, if 3 people give a vote on the package that it was successfully built, even if it's 1 day old or a few hours old, it will get back pushed to the stable repo. So that sometimes helps to push things faster in case of urgency. The other thing was I just wanted to know is there orphan if a package is orphaned, is there a policy around for Gentoo, how do they do that? If you can see a list of packages that are getting orphaned or having less updates.
Yeah,
matching with our set?
So every package in Gen 2 has the metadata XML alongside it, and if it's orphaned, it'll have, at least, officially orphaned, it'll have a tag in it saying maintainer needed or maintainer wanted. In this case, officially the guy hasn't disappeared, so it still has his name on it, but we can obviously tell that it's been a while. But yeah, I think there's quite a few maintainer needed packages in Flatcar. I can very easily check actually. But
Okay. And the other thing was like probably what we can do for the big start is what we earlier used to do is that we used to, as Matthew mentioned, we used to run. I mean, our package updates is primarily like we used to update a few packages which are very old. I built that thing where most of the packages, when we forked out of CoreOS, most of the packages were old. But then we used to prioritize security packages, and then one few major packages like systemd and everything. Whenever it released, we used to update. I think what we can do is that right now with weekly package updates, because the turnaround time gets a bit longer, we can probably try to for the start what we can do is probably like move out, as I mentioned, move out a few of the builds which are security prone, move it out and then try to backport it. I think that's a good starter, and maybe like we can use the office hours and the DevSync meeting to rethink, add it as a section and rethink on the process so that people can just think on it and see how that thing goes. But I remember like we used to actively backport a lot of packages earlier just to like so that it hits stable faster. So yeah, so maybe we can try to bring that up, doing more of that manually and see how if that solves the issue a bit. But I see a different layer of the problems. One is like the releases definitely taking a lot of time, then the package updates a bit slower with so many packages getting updated and trying to be synced with Gen 2. And the other thing was like the influx of security issues have also risen in the last few months. So yeah.
Okay, so I just briefly capture, we see the need to address security issues first in the weekly updates, and then maybe following that cherry pick and backport them to beta and stable. We see a need to accelerate the builds in some way, so we have more releases more often than we need them. And there's a number of packages which we should review that would need our attention. Should we just post it to list? Jan?
Just got a quick question. So do we have a statistic on what takes the most amount of time when it comes to the release process? Like from our perspective, right? Like, let's say I want to start releasing today, right? And like the time until a node can upgrade, right? Each stage, how much time does it take, right? Like if I need to reload the builds a few times, right? The signing itself, right? And maybe
I don't think that's the bottleneck. Sorry for cutting this down, but we're pretty much over time. Because it takes weeks to integrate the weekly updates, and we currently have CVE fixes bundled into that, and it takes 2 or 3 days to create a release. So we would be focusing on the wrong bottleneck, and we'd be optimizing releases first. I'm not saying we shouldn't. In fact, it would be amazing if we could have these nightly alpha releases, but right now, the situation we're in, it wouldn't be really anything. So yeah.
Yeah, I think releases in general have gotten faster, but the bottlenecks can never be guessed on what is failing. But I think the issue here is the turnaround time. Like even if we make the releases faster, I think the packages will still end up in alpha and then reach stable in like 3 months, because our cadence is such that it iterates in that manner. So I think we need to make sure how we can like backport packages quickly and we already know like which are the high CV ones and look onto those. But I think we need to actively discuss if we need to change something in the release cadence to make things. But yeah, this should be, because we talk as a security focused OS, so security should definitely be one of the premier things. But yeah, so just to answer your question, Jan, I think sometimes marketplace phase comes, sometimes builds takes time, sometimes maybe the signing takes a bit of time, but in general, if everything goes right, I think it takes these days, if we start uh, like in my time, if it start at night and everything goes fine, we would have the release out by next day. Like I can prepare the go no go everything by when folks from Europe come online, and we release it in next 2-3 hours. So it's usually not a big issue. It's just that sometimes like there are breakages that happen, and which takes time, and some we probably would need to like know like we forgot to ingest something or some packages got missed, so we have to restart the build. So those things like PR did not get merged or restarting the builds. So those things definitely take some time. So yeah, Chui.
I'm wondering if we need something like that monitors, for new CVEs above a certain level, maybe possibly through the GLSA, that's Gen 2 Linux Security Advisories, although I don't always trust those to be up to date. And then just a script or even an AI powered thing that just like backports any updates from alpha across those channels when it sees that, and then just files a PR ready for us, and with a build already done, ready for us to look at it and go, okay, great, merge, and it can handle the change log as well. Because that, I think, is the kind of, it's not a big task, but it's just lots of little things, which packages, which CVEs, write the change log, kick off the builds. It's all that kind of thing that just takes up the time.
All right. Any larger contributions or big questions to the discussion? Otherwise, I'd like to move on to the GPU container.
I think we can keep reiterating on this. As I said, I definitely think we need to add it to the agenda so that it reminds us to read through this. And one thing I just was recalling, so basically like earlier, like when we used to do it manually, it's still like people did not complain a lot about a package not getting there, but because we used to backport it very quickly based on like a higher score, and we used to let the low CV be there soaking and reaching the stable, but high CV usually used to be backporters. I think the stopgap solution right now is to like look into that cherry picking process, and then we can reiterate on this. Yeah.
Yeah, let's keep the discussion going. That's definitely worth. So I'll be looking at 2, maybe 3 work streams. The first is separating CV fixes out of the weekly update. So basically going through the advisory tracking first, and then picking packages from there, and then everything that's left is a regular weekly update. Following up with cherry picks to beta and stable. So these get fixes faster, but only in the patch level band and not in the minor or major version upgrade band for packages. And the other kind of work stream is optimizing the builds up to a point where we have nightly alpha releases. Cool. Next agenda point is Robin on the NVIDIA GPU driver container. Robin, you're now set out to save our mood because we discussed ourselves into a grumpy state. So please, share something enjoyable.
So Chewy and who else was it? I don't remember correctly.
Jeremy.
Jeremy, yeah. So thanks. They already worked on building the required images for the NVIDIA GPU driver container. And I picked these up. I rebased to the latest main of the NVIDIA repository and created a pull request in a private repository there. And from there, I created an agenda in the past with Tilo together, what would be needed to support everything that, for example, Ubuntu supports. And right now there are already GitHub actions in order to build these images and publish them to GitHub. And some of the next steps would be bring the current state to a Flatcar hub in an official repository. And then some next steps would be, for example, support the NVIDIA Fabric controller. This is required for servers more than one GPU. So right now you can only use one GPU. If your server has 4, then you're unlucky. And there also is an option in NVIDIA to have some precompiled images. This is also a future goal, because right now the container that's available is like a building container. You're running this container and it builds the required images and loads it to Kubernetes or Containerd. So there's also very much work in progress, but I wanted to share the current goal there. Yes.
Thank you for working on that. Yeah, I did try and get the pre-compiled thing working because it's supposed to support that, but for some reason it would fail to load the modules and then fall back to building it from source anyway. So I tried really hard to figure it out. It was some really deep-rooted issue. I think maybe if we throw AI at it again, it might figure it out.
I already tried that part, but I had no success so far. Yeah, I did some iterations with it and tried to troubleshoot the issue with AI, but it failed every time again with the same issue.
It's frustrating. I don't know if NVIDIA is interested in accepting Flatcar support because the one they've got is really old, or whether we can just publish it ourselves or make it available in a very easy to use way. I mean, you mentioned GitHub Actions. I don't know if we could just provide something for people to run and just say, well, here's your image against whatever Flatcar version you need, you know?
I talked with Jeremy about this at the KubeCon earlier this year, and he said they are not that open to accepting this. It should be at Flatcar level, but we can try it, and maybe we can contact him again. I think he's working at NVIDIA right now. Maybe he can help us.
Nice. Yeah, I would think just moving the repository over to Flatcar Hub, which I think you're even able to do all by yourself, Robin, because you're co-owner of Flatcar Hub, and then iterate on the PR there. Although I'm not sure who else than you can actually go and test that. Shui maybe, so we can get this merged and have something that we can start with, and start releasing the container image to GHCR, and maybe even mentioning it in our official documentation is a great way to start. I believe more than the usual Flatcar changes and new features, we are very much dependent on our user community to start using a container and giving us feedback on that. What do you folks think?
Yeah, it's good. I can easily test on my laptop, by the way, because I've got 2 GPUs and I keep the NVIDIA one spare for things like this, or running Windows in a VM.
Nice. Good stuff. Okay, then let's move it over and get things merged.
Yeah, currently I have it not on a main branch. I have a feature branch for it on my repository, but I can easily merge this. And if someone wants to test it and has no GPU available, maybe I can help out there.
That would be,
but
yeah.
Not always, because they're always sold out.
GPUs are rare nowadays, so if someone else than Shui wants to test Adrian, maybe that would be super helpful.
Sure, I can also try it out.
Nice. All right. I don't have much in terms of other topics. There's no changes in the roadmap. We don't have Irvin around today for Nebraska. He just returned and he's picking up Nebraska work again. He'll be back with Nebraska news soon. How about we give the mic to Jan for CNCF news?
Okay. As most of you, I think, remember from the email, we basically have the idea of creating something called a steering committee and also possibly a technical committee. Those would be basically semi-governing bodies for Flatcar that would essentially help us with our governance. And this is something that was suggested by some of the folks that work with CNCF. Now, why do we even have this, like, on the table? Is basically we do have a, I wouldn't say an issue. It's more about a worry from the community when it comes to the proportions of maintainers from individual companies, right? And that is, gotta be upfront about it. And this is supposed to be basically something that prevents it from ever being an issue. The idea is we, and by we, I mean us maintainers, so people that are on that project maintainers, that CSV list, and one of the CNCF repositories, you have a vote. And if we all agree on something, we can create a body like that, give it some power, invite people to be elected, and that body can later have certain abilities, right? They can govern, help us make decisions, prevent something from happening potentially, right? If it's not positive, let's say, for the project. So today I just wanted to mention it. We are planning on having a dedicated meeting, but I basically wanted to ask if at this moment any one of you has any questions, ideas, thoughts about it. And yeah.
I must admit, it makes me slightly uneasy, but only because if it's one representative from each company, it doesn't really give an equal balance of people actually doing the work, I'm not saying it would necessarily be an issue, but do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, absolutely. So the idea would be to have an odd number of representatives in that committee, so that there cannot be a tie, first of all, and also have a losing amount of maintainers in that committee, right? So let's say we have 5 people on that committee, you would have 2 maintainers and 3 users, right, or people from the community. Tilo, do you want to say something?
In general, I like the idea, especially because I was actually pursuing users to onboard with the project as maintainers by doing docs contributions and evangelism and more user specific things, but having a dedicated way of integrating them without going through some of the project motions that we currently have, because it's a purely maintainer driven project, I think would be super helpful. It would be challenging, of course, to find users willing to be a representative in those committees, but I think it's also dependent on how we define the threshold at which the committee should be pulled in when it's about a decision. I understand, including new services in Flatcar, adding new features, keeping things automated and up to date is something that this committee would not be involved with, but very strong decisions like switching from Docker to Podman by default, or switching from the Linux kernel to GNU Herd or something like that, which is, I had to make that, sorry, which is significant and not necessarily aligned with all maintainers, then that's where we could pull in that committee and align decisions. So one way to think about it is that the structure we're thinking about, the project structure, is having something that is above the maintainers and is not concerned with day-to-day work. And if I think about that structure, one thing, like one process that seems really fitting for this is like your average standard escalation process. And that's not a bad thing, but a good thing. So imagine one group of maintainers being in misalignment with another group of maintainers or a large group of users, and they can't get together and solve the problem, right? And that would be an escalation. So both parties with their different reasonings would approach that committee and would present, hey, we can't solve that problem ourselves, please help us, right? And then at that point, it's really, really beneficial to have that governing body that you can actually approach, and that would help you solve that problem and align interests across different groups.
Gentoo Council is basically the same thing. They don't get involved with every little aspect, just the big stuff that comes to the surface.
Yeah, that sounds more or less what we want. And we have the power of basically deciding now what would be their powers, right? So, for example, I think Istio is a project that has a committee like that. For their committee, they can, like, they even need them to decide if they can create a new repository or not. I mean, I think for deleting a repository, that is kind of good, actually, right? Like, so that someone doesn't like randomly like delete half of Flatcar, right? But maybe for adding a repository or whatever, this is not really needed, right? So in our case, our real main issue is to ensure that the direction of the project remains with the community, right? The users and like what the people actually want it for. And the general main idea that it has or has had for well, many years, right?
I love Istio as an example in particular because Istio has a very long story of more or less being owned by a single company, and at several points in the past, it wasn't even clear that it was ever going to be a like fully open project where everyone can contribute to the stewardship, right? Like Google was on top of Istio for a super long time. It was just their thing, and it only gradually opened up. And when it did, I remember vividly that the community was not very like generous with their trust, right? Because they knew what the backstory. I think for Istio, it was very challenging to earn community trust. And when I look at Istio now, its role in its position in the CNCF and the council, the steering committee that you mentioned, I think that's an impressive achievement that they did, given where they were only as short as, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. So that's I think it's a good example in where we want to be in the future. So that makes sense, although we don't really need to find granularity in what you mentioned, deleting or creating repositories, but the path they took, I find that impressive.
Just a little cautionary tale. Quite a few years back, the Gentoo Council made a ruling on Gentoo's games packages because the other maintainers were complaining that games were being maintained in a weird way, like that wasn't really aligned with the rest of the distribution. And they were like, well, why are games so special? They're just games. They should be the same as everything else. And in protest, the entire games team basically resigned, not just from the games team, but from Gentoo entirely. And we tried to fill that void. I'm the lead of the games team now, but yeah, we've never quite had their momentum. But yeah, things like that can happen.
Yeah, I think this is exactly why we could have a steering committee for the steering of the project itself, right? Like, for example, like hey, how about we did not add a Copilot subscription everywhere, right? Like, this is a decision they would make, but we could also have a technical steering committee, right? So someone can come to us and voice their opinion and CVs, right? Which is something we discussed today, right? And that committee would ultimately decide on that issue, not like people that are more about governance and stuff like that, right? Tilo?
Yeah, also it kind of really showcases the kind of upside down view that groups or communities can have on these committees, because the way I see it, the committee is there to serve the project, not to dictate things to the project. And that's exactly why I use that escalation kind of path, right? Like when there are 2 or more groups in the project that have stakes in the project and that just can't communicate, then you escalate to the committee and you have those groups being helped by the committee. But it's not the other way around, in that the committee identifies, I don't like that group, so I'm gonna, bash down on that particular part of the project, because the scenario isn't the same. Like the conflict isn't given, it's being created. And I think when establishing a steering committee, we can make it pretty clear in like the purpose and how the committee is set up, what it is good for and what it isn't good for.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, that division of, like, for example, we can have a technical committee for X and Y, right? A governance committee of people that know and understand the open source ecosystem and the projects and governance and how all of this functions, right? Be concerned more with the, preventing a hostile takeover, right, by someone, or resolving issues within the project, right? Or, for example, I don't know, asking external partners for help, right? Or CNCF for help. We potentially also have a different governing body for something else, but I think these are the main issues they would deal with. And also, like, it depends only on us, like how much power we give them, right? So if we all decide that, we really do not want the steering committee to, for example, manage, our packaging strategy, right? We can do that, right? We could have a separate one or not have one at all, right? This definitely, it's very important that you mentioned that, right? Because this is a real concern that we have seen in the past, right? Because, like, let's say, we have a committee that is full of very good, like, governance, people that really understand the human perspective, right? And can navigate that space, right? But maybe they did not understand a certain niche that you mentioned, like, for example, gaming, right? Although we do not really ship packages for gaming, as far as I know, that can potentially happen, right? And that's why we have that division. We can have that division.
Cool. All right. No, I think it's really good to have these questions surfaced. And for the dedicated meeting, I think we should have at least a draft of what we want the committee to do and the next path forward. I mean, I don't think anything will be ultimately decided in that meeting, but it's definitely good to have this process started and get going and arrive at some at least timeline. All right, I'm gonna cut things short a little bit because we're way over time. We have a few points for the website. I'd like to move them to the community call. The website, a few folks haven't seen the PRs to the Flatcar website. This is amazing work. Like, the restructuring work that's currently happening is great. And there's also a new PR that overhauls the releases side, and I just checked it out. If you want to have a link, it's right in this meeting's agenda. Jan added it as a comment. So if you want to take a look, please go there. It looks really, really great. So that's something that's happening. It's not really finished by now. We're still iterating. So it's PRs on the website repo, but let's take a closer look in the community call in 2 weeks. All right. Anything else you folks want to share before we shut down the call? All right. Thanks for staying, everybody, and thanks for contributing to the call. I think we covered like a lot of ground this time. Sorry for going 20 minutes over time, and see you at the maintainers at the steering committee call, obviously, and everybody else at the office hours in July. Thanks, folks. Bye.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Guys.
Bye.